Hi, and welcome to this Ignite Webcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Josh Topal, and I'm a Program Manager for Office 365. Ignite events are a series of technical workshops for IT professionals and Microsoft partners, and the Ignite Webcast series will address different technical subjects and scenarios that are beneficial to anyone who wants to increase their knowledge of the Office 365 suite. So today we are happy to have David Matsumoto speak to us about Office Telemetry in Office 365. So David is a program manager for Microsoft on the Office Solutions Management team in Tokyo, Japan. And today's session provides a great opportunity to hear from a Microsoft employee and learn about some of the new features and releases coming up for Office and Office 365. So today's webcast will be about an hour, and we're going to leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to field any questions from anyone on the call. We're recording today's session, and we'll have this slideshow that's going to be presented by David and the video available on the original Ignite blog post and the Office 365 community blog. And I'm going to paste those links into the text box right now. And you can also view the video on the Office 365 YouTube channel. So one last thing is, if you want to ask a question during the presentation, you can type them into the chat box below, and we'll hold those until the end. So David, whenever you're ready, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, can you hear me? Great. Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. So again, my name is David Matsumoto, and it's good to be here and to do this webcast. I'm not sure who is on the call exactly, but I hope that it'll be beneficial for everyone who's on the call. So again, I'm here to talk about Office Telemetry, which is really new for Office 2013, and coming from Tokyo, Japan. So good morning for those who are in Tokyo, and good evening or afternoon for those who are in the U.S. Or elsewhere, for that matter. So let's get started. So just talk a little bit about it, to give some background about why, we're delivering value in Office Telemetry for Office 2013. I want to talk about what are some common deployment blockers that enterprises experience when trying to think about, okay, I have an Office deployed in my organization. I'm thinking about going to the next version, and what might be preventing me from going to the next version, and some fears that organizations encounter. And so they think about questions like, will our files work in the new Office? Obviously, right? If I open a Word document in Office 2010, will it continue to work in 2013, or will my employees have problems? Another one is not only files, but also add-ins and customizations, solutions that may have been built in-house by our organization. Will those continue to work as expected, or will there be discrepancies that could slow down productivity? Another one is, especially now, when you think about employees bringing their own devices into work and having multiple devices, it gets more complicated to try to manage the user experience across multiple devices with different versions of Office, and how does an organization handle that consumerization with multiple devices? And so these are complicated issues that really in the past have taken organizations quite a while to think about moving to the next version of Office in their organization. And so one of, I'd say, our primary goals in thinking about how to help organizations out is how to reduce this time and to provide a no-fear upgrade experience for organizations in Office. Or enterprises that are upgrading Office. And so you can think about in this slide here, you can see that we kind of have it organized in a sequential pattern, where in the previous version of Office, you have organizations spending quite a long time to inventory and figure out what are all the files that they have, and then trying to figure out what's important, and then moving on to the testing phase, which takes a while as they try to, as they pour through hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of documents and solutions in their organization. And then finally, they can go on to piloting when they feel ready, and deploy Office to a limited set of computers, and then or users, and then start scaling that out to the organization. But actually, we're trying to obviously shorten this process. And one of the things I want to emphasize over and over again in this presentation, because I think this is one of the really key selling points, is that we're trying to help people, instead of having to inventory all of the files or solutions and figure out what's important, we're helping you, the enterprise or the IT pro, discover what are important to your organization. And we're not bringing you completely 100% of the way there, but we're hopefully in the features that I'm going to describe and demonstrate today, we're getting you a lot of the way there and making your job a lot simpler. So we're shortening that time to discover what's important, what needs to be tested, and then do a quick amount of sanity testing in your, just to make sure that things are working as expected and productivity can continue. And then really, instead of having to spend this long period of time testing, you can really go straight to side-by-side piloting. And that's one of the things that I want to briefly discuss as well in this presentation, which is, how there's actually a couple of technologies really that working together are enabling enterprises and IT pros to really move up the upgrade experience to, instead of being several months to a year, to being only a few months. And actually, in theory, you could even do it almost immediately and move to side-by-side piloting. I'll talk about that very soon. So bottom line is we want to produce give you a no-fear upgrade experience, and you can really get going and deploying as soon as possible. So you have the traditional process, much longer, the modern process, much shorter, with no fear or less fear, hopefully no fear. So one of the technologies, and I don't want to go into great detail on this, but I think it's important to discuss, that really enables this side-by-side piloting experience. And when I say side-by-side, I mean you can run Office 2010 or a lower version side-by-side with the latest version 2013, is the click-to-run experience. And I just want to briefly go into some details about why that's, what are the advantages. So you have a paradigm shift in Office installation between the previous way, since it was available in Office 2000, which is MSI-based, versus click-to-run, which is now the default for Office going forward. And so, in the past, MSIs would take easily 30 minutes or more to install, and versus click-to-run, which is, it should be up and running in about 2 minutes. There may be bandwidth considerations and so forth, but it should be much faster. And when you consider updates, in the past, those updates adding on top of the base MSI install could take substantially longer. Whereas in click-to-run, it should be much less. And so we think that the actual installation and getting up and running with any patches and slipstream updates are much smoother. And of course now this is the primary installation type in the new Office, and so that's what we're encouraging definitely end users and enterprises to be thinking about, to be moving towards, is a click-to-run experience. It is linked to, click-to-run is linked to Office 365 for managed customers, so you need to have a tenant. And again, I don't want to go into a lot of detail on Office 365, but basically, it's a user-based activation. It's highly customizable, like MSIs were. One thing that's different, of course, is that it's a user-based activation as opposed to MSI, which was a device-based activation. And this is something that was demanded by customers for several years, and actually now is given to customers, especially helping organizations to think about, as I said at the beginning, customers bringing their own devices into work and being able to say, hey, I've got my own tablet or my own laptop from home. I want to run Office on this. Can I is there a way to make this easy to happen so I can use a license that's, given by my organization, use it on my computer, and then if that person were to leave the company, then to have that folded back into the general licenses that the company holds. And so this whole user-based activation is something that's provided now in click-to-run. And another one that's very important is that we, with click-to-run, also allow local apps to interact with with Office, and that was some kind of a blocker in the past where you could have customers that it would have their ActiveX controls or whatnot that would have trouble interacting, the local apps interacting with opening up a spreadsheet, and you would have trouble penetrating that virtual that virtual experience. But now that process is that roadblock is removed, and so really you really have basically parity with the MSI install experience as far as having a local apps interact with it. And then finally, it doesn't require app infrastructure or MDOP. It's basically the click-to-run is built on the app infrastructure, but you don't have to have app installed separately. And so overall, we think that this is a great experience, and we've rethought application delivery with the click-to-run experience. In today's model of application virtualization, you would bring down a few components, but actually, as you can see in the diagram, if you're trying to use component 1 and component 1 has a dependency on component 2, it wasn't as well componentized, and you'd end up bringing down the whole thing. And even then, you might have an exe attached, a local process that couldn't even access that, and so it wasn't as well componentized and modularized. And now we have made that much more componentized, and you can see that that has helped to streamline the process of being up and running very quickly with your click-to-run install experience. Features are loaded on demand, and of course, you have local application integration. So if you have that exe that wants to talk to a specific component, that happens. And so, and then finally, I'm trying to kind of get into the actual telemetry part of this, is the side-by-side version support, which helps you to basically give you that no-fear experience. You can keep older versions of Office installed alongside the new version of Office, and so you can be proactive. And basically, if I have an older version and I want to install 2013, but I'm not sure if the solutions or add-ins will continue to run, well, don't worry about that, because you can install that, and if it doesn't run, your user can fall back and continue to use the older version that's installed side by side. And so we think that side by side is enabled with this click-to-run technology, and that's why I wanted to discuss that. But we don't recommend that as a permanent configuration, but only to help with the transition experience. So the question is, let's say that I've got my side-by-side piloting here, and I've got 2013 installed alongside, say, 2010, Office 2010, and now I want to say, well, okay, how do I get monitoring? How do I know what kinds of problems customers might be experiencing so that I can really say, okay, I'm ready to deploy this out to my whole organization, or I'm not ready to deploy this out and I need to do more testing. And so we want to think about solutions management. That's the bulk of the presentation that I want to get into, is how do we give you telemetry that lets you know, yeah, things are working well, let's roll this out, let's really, cross over and go full stream to upgrade. And so when you think about solutions management, we think about why is upgrading taking a lot of time and a lot of work today, and how do we solve that problem for customers? And so when you think about common headaches, again, I alluded to this at the beginning. You have VBA, XLA, macros. Are they still working as they expected? Complex documents, do they still print the same, or have there been changes to underlying APIs that might cause that you, the developer or the solution owner, would want to know, so that you would know, hey, does this, is there something that's changed that we need to update our add-in? Or are third-party apps still functional, or are they not working properly? Or is there some change that's happened that perhaps the solution that used to run fine is now running some deprecated, API, and now it's extremely slow, and the load time is slowed down by a faulty add-in. So these are some common headaches that we want to help you, IT Pro, identify ahead of time. Now, one thing that I want to come back to again is that in the past, enterprises would need to basically index, every file potentially in their organization, and then figure out what's important, and that could take a lot of time. And obviously, it's not practical to test every solution if you're running to the thousands or even millions of documents. How do you test that on a broad basis? And obviously, they're not all of the same importance. to customers. And so how do you go about thinking about what's important and what needs to be tested? So that brings us to the modern compatibility process, which I want to kind of give an overview and then dive into the deeper technical details. So first of all, when you think about discovering, you want to think about discovering what is being used and helping you to discover that, then to rationalize that and prioritize. So discover and then prioritize. Then you want to validate. Okay, this is what's being used. This is what's important now. Is this working properly? Can we monitor? Are these solutions, the customers that are using our employees, is it working as expected, or are they encountering issues that we need to be proactive in fixing or addressing? And then finally, to use that, have an infrastructure that continues to monitor and manage what's being used in your organization. So it's not just about only during upgrade time, but also even through the life cycle of the product, that you continuously monitor what's being used and what is the quality of that usage. And so when you get to even, a next upgrade, it should be very straightforward, and there's not this long lead time to get ready to upgrade to a future version. So just to kind of get into a little bit more detail, so one of the things, at each step of these phases, we provide value, we think. And so thinking about finding the right stuff. What is being used, by who, and how often? And so, and this applies to both Office file use and installed add-ins. And this is, and we're collecting, in this sense, I'm going to be demonstrating the telemetry dashboard, which is really gathering this data, and it's not gathering the actual files, but actually metadata, which gets stored into a database, which we present to the admin, and hopefully in a way that is pretty straightforward to use. So that's the discovery process, and then in that same dashboard, we help you prioritize given with certain file and solution views to make it easier for you to sort and really kind of go to town on how to think about what's important and prioritize that across users, files, and solutions, and really kind of dive deep into the data. And then, of course, that monitoring and managing and reacting to issues, which we present in the dashboard, and that kind of informed piloting. And so, again, this is, I want to keep in perspective here that this is intended to go nicely with the side-by-side click-to-run install experience, where you've installed side-by-side, and now you want to see, okay, it was working in 2010 or 2007, but is it still working in 2013? And to kind of give you that information while you're piloting. And then finally, that continuous data collection in monitoring throughout the life cycle and proactive issue isolation, managing ongoing updates as they might come down from Microsoft, and then seeing, oh, well, I took this update, did it break this solution? Or you can kind of track that and manage your add-ins. So that's kind of the process that we're recommending now for organizations upgrading to the next version of Office. And we believe that the telemetry technology that we're delivering here for Office 2013, which is built into the product, can help you out tremendously. And so I want to kind of start getting into the technology details about how we would help out. So we identify the frequency of documents and solutions being used, and going to give you that in a quantitative way about how many sessions and users are using a particular document solution. We also give you report issues and performance for Office 2013. And so, that's kind of a new experience for 2013, where we're actually giving you telemetry data about crashes and load issues that might be happening that wasn't available baked into the down-level versions of Office, but we are still giving you telemetry in, of course, this version of Office, and inventory data in down-level versions of Office. And I'll get into that into more details later. Then we're also helping you to manage, Office solutions. If you've got some kind of a solution that's not working properly, we give you that flexibility to be able to disable that and hopefully unblock customer or users who are having issues. And I'll do a quick demo of that this morning, or today. And then finally, we give you an overview of what is being deployed in your organization, what, across different users, what bitness, 32-bit, 64-bit, across what versions of the OS and so forth, and really help you to see, how the organization landscape is doing as far as deployment goes. So talking about the elements of Office telemetry, you've got the telemetry log, and also the telemetry dashboard. And these are basically the two high-level features that if you have Windows 8 or install Office on your machine, you can do a quick search and type telemetry, and you'll see these two icons appear. And basically, the key difference here is that the telemetry log is intended on a local user basis. It captures local compatibility events. And they're both Excel-based, the dashboard and the log. But the log is basically capturing, for that particular user on that particular machine, that's what the telemetry log is giving you that data about that usage. Whereas the dashboard is the centralized view across the organization, analyzing trends in use and success. And that kind of that's dependent on the database, which is basically the telemetry foundation. And that is gathered, that data is gathered across your organization by the use of inventory agents, which of course are built into 2013, Office 2013. So whenever you install 2013 Pro Plus or Professional, you get the agent installed automatically. It has to be enabled, but it's installed. And you also, of course, have the ability to deploy that agent on down-level machines, and then have them be reporting up to the database, and that then eventually feeds into the dashboard. And so I'll get into a little bit more detail on that. But before I do, I just want, I've kind of said a bit already, and I want to go into a little bit of a demo on an overview of telemetry, of those features of the telemetry log. So let me just kind of quickly. So let's suppose that I'm a user, and I am having an issue with calendar control, for example. And so here in this particular demo, I am trying to create a row by clicking on one of these dates in the calendar control. And I see that obviously it's not working. I'm not seeing a new row created. And so something's going on here. I don't know what it is. I'm just a user, and I'm getting frustrated. And so, is there something that can be done? There's another, example that we can talk about here where I am, some organization, and I'm some user, and I'm opening up a confidentiality agreement. And, I see this ad, and what's this all about? And, so somehow that got installed, and that's obviously annoying to have something pop up while I'm trying to open a document. And there was also supposed to be some kind of a business solution that's running, as a macro in this document that's not working properly. And so that's all I see is just the raw text here. And I want to say, well, what's going on? There might have been data that should have been populated, but I don't see it here. And so the user, call my, IT pro or say, hey, this is not going on. Or, the IT pro is just managing this and wants to know how things are going. And so, the user can, on the user machine, can very easily open up telemetry log, and you can just see here, telemetry log and telemetry dashboard, and I already have it open on my machine. So, and in this case, I'll just click refresh. You can see here that, I, at 10:25, which is just a minute ago, it registered a critical error on my machine for this, for my user, and this is a critical error, and I can see that, the OM object model has been removed, and I can scroll over and, okay, I see that this is affecting the confidentiality agreement template. And if I wanted to, I can see more detail that, okay, the custom XML features removed from Microsoft Word, and if related methods and properties are hidden, and if accessed, they return a runtime error. So if it's returning a runtime error, then obviously that explains why you're seeing a critical error here, that obviously something's not working. Now, this is, the user may not actually do much with this, but let's say that I am a tester and I am trying to test on why this document is not working. Well, I could easily click this link here and get some more info and say, oh, well, there's a OM removed, and here is, gives you a little bit more info, and you can click here and so forth, and you can get even additional more information as a developer about how can I go about fixing this and so forth. And I don't want to get into a lot of details there, but basically this is the general idea that we're giving you within the telemetry log, that developers, testers can go about quickly seeing how to fix issues or diagnose what are issues they're experiencing. For the calendar one, you can see, oh, there's a warning that was experienced for this calendar control, and in this case, it's a feature of previous versions of Microsoft Access that's not available in Office 2013. It's not installed on this computer, and it advises the user to pick other controls as an alternative. And so you can follow a similar kind of diagnosis process with the telemetry log to uncover what are other kinds of issues that the user might be encountering. So that's kind of a quick demo of the telemetry log experience. And I also want to just kind of very quickly go into a little bit of detail on the telemetry dashboard. And so I already have it open here in the telemetry dashboard. And what I want to kind of correspond to is if you open up the dashboard again, and you connect to the database, the first thing that you see is this overview screen, and you can see basically a list of what are the stable and unstable documents and solutions across your organization. And then you can kind of see that graphically displayed. And in here you can see, okay, this is the number of solutions that have success rates lower than 99%. So you can, and then of course you can click into that and see what, and drill into what are these values, or what are these solutions that are experiencing, critical issues. So in this particular case, I'm going to say, okay, well, there's so many different documents in this organization. Let's see if I can filter, and I'm just going to choose the Webcast Ignite in this case, and then do a quick refresh. And okay, I see that the confidentiality agreement that I was just talking earlier is in fact registering a critical error, and I can go into and click that and say, oh well, okay, now I see that basically I'm seeing the same thing that the end user could have seen on their telemetry log, except now I'm the IT pro, and I can see, oh yeah, okay, I'm seeing what's going on here, and I can even see what sessions were experienced. Oh, okay, it was all encountered by the same user, by David Matt, which happens to be me, but you can, and then of course you can see other details as well, such as the event ID, what domain, what the location that the file was launched from, the Office version, the size, and so forth, and then other details like is it using VBA? In this case, it's true, OLE, and so forth. And so we think that this is pretty rich information that it's useful not only for the end user customer or for the tester or developer, but even just for the IT pro to manage this at a high level. And I think I can't remember what the other one, but there was a calendar control, and the confidentiality agreement. And so, in this case here, you've also got that informative issue, which is the calendar control saying that that this version is not available or not installed. And so, you kind of get the idea that you can go ahead and triage and figure out what's going on in your organization. And you can also filter, and we provide a pretty good level of 4 different kinds of filters, which you can kind of get an idea of how to go about filtering that. And I'm going to go into detail about how you can create this. But basically, this is kind of a quick overview of the dashboard and the telemetry log. You've got your overview here, solution documents view, which gives you a really rich view of what are the documents that are being used and how often. solutions as well, so documents and solutions. Then you've got the telemetry processor, which gives you an overview of, well, actually, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I'll come back to that in a little bit. One thing I do want to say, and I want to emphasize, is that in Office 2013, we're giving you telemetry information in the form of what kinds of add-ins or documents or issues are being experienced, whether it's crashes or load failures, and you can get more information by clicking here at the top here in these expansion points to kind of get more information about that. Whereas in Office in down-level versions, because the telemetry infrastructure wasn't baked in there at that point, even when we deployed the agents down level, you're just going to get inventory data, but we still think that's very useful to get that inventory data about what's being used, because that'll help you prioritize what's important, what is most often used in your organization, can influence or inform what's important and what should be tested. I think obviously I could say more, but I'm going to keep on going because I'm going to run short on time if I don't continue. Okay, so how does this work? So basically, you've got the telemetry dashboard, which I just talked about very briefly, and you've got Office 2013 clients, which obviously, as some users use their clients, they upload data to the dashboard. And how does this go about happening? At a very high level, I'm a user. I open up a Word document or an Excel file, and when that happens, metadata gets sent to a shared folder, which the IT pro sets up, and we call that a collection point. And then that gets processed by what we call a telemetry processor, and then gets uploaded to the database, which gets stored. This is the metadata now, not the file itself. And then ultimately, when the IT pro pulls this data up through the dashboard, it lights up the dashboard. Now, this is for the 2013 clients, which I want to emphasize is capturing both inventory data and telemetry data. Whereas in pre-2013 clients, it's a similar experience where they have agents running on the pre-2013 clients, and it's sending up data that gets processed by the telemetry processor, goes through the database, and then, of course, lights up the dashboard. Now, you as the IT pro, of course, are able to manage this whole experience about what is enabled or disabled, and we give you that kind of granularity through group policy controls to manage that across your organizational domain. And we think that this is a pretty good infrastructure to empower you to manage this. So let's see, what do I have here? Okay, so I'm going to do another demo and talk a little bit about, now that you have an overview about how the infrastructure works, talk a little bit about, let's say that I have an issue. So I don't know if you remember, but people, so in this case here, I was opening up the confidentiality agreement, and you can see here that there was an annoying add-in called AdLink that was just, taking so much time, and then why would I ever want to, somebody must have installed this, maybe it's some kind of a spam thing that I opened. So why is this going on, and how do I stop this, right? And so, you can imagine that this is really annoying. So let's say that I'm the IT pro. One of my users said, hey, I'm experiencing this add-in. What's going on? Why am I experiencing such slow load times? Or the IT pro could be proactive and just thinking about what are the highest load times. In this case, I'm going to sort and filter by the Webcast Ignite, and I'm going to refresh. Oops. And, I'm sorting by largest to smallest, and I can see, well, in fact, that AdLink actually is has an extremely bad load time, and I want to know what I can do about it. And so one of the things we provide here is this add-in management mode, where you can click that, and you can see, oh, okay, well, I'm seeing that, yeah, this is blocked here for Excel and PowerPoint, but for Word, I'm not seeing, obviously it's still causing problems for users. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select to block this. And you could do that and block this on a per solution basis. And then I'm going to click this create button to basically create a script that I would then run on my server as a group policy setting. So in this case, I'm going to save this. Actually, I already have it saved on my desktop, but what I want to do is quickly just open it up very, very quickly and to show you, what's going on here. So basically, this is pretty generic, but what's important here is that all this is doing is this setting a registry value for Word in the add-in list that basically says, I want to block this particular add-in add link from running. It sets that value to 0. And so I don't have server installed, and I'm not going to go into the group management editor here. But what I wanted to show is that we can basically accomplish the equivalent of that, and I'm going to run just a GP update that file, which basically does the exact same thing and turns that off. And now if I run this again, it should load, right? Oh, yeah, okay, and now it's blocked. And now I should be able to go in and see, actually, let me just open up one more time really quickly, and go in and see under options and their add-ins, and I can see, okay, this is disabled now, and if I go in, it says, oh, the add-in you have selected is disabled by your system administrator. So there you go. So, you can see that we give you that kind of granularity as the IT pro to manage this through dashboard experience in combination with the group policy editor. So let me go back to this. So that's kind of a quick a few demos to kind of give you the power of how you can manage this in your organization. You might say though, wow, this is a lot of rich data. Maybe this is even too much data. And what if I have users that have sensitivity or privacy concerns about after all, we are sending not the files themselves, but we are sending metadata up to the organization, up to the dashboard, up to the database about what files and the folders and the users and is there something we should be concerned about there? And the answer is yes. We have identified that could be a valid concern, and we're giving several options to mitigate these concerns. One of them is to obfuscate the file properties that actually at the client level you can set in the settings to obfuscate these properties. And I'll show you that very, very quickly about how to go about setting that. But basically, that'll, as shown below here, that'll obfuscate the file names that are being used. And so, you can still, though, go ahead and if you see some issues with a particular solution or file, you still know the user, and you can contact the user to see, and dig in deeper to see what kinds of issues they might be experiencing without having to compromise their privacy. That's a pretty heavyweight solution. Another one, of course, is to be able to give you the power to filter on what kinds of solutions and file types are being used. And so if you say, oh, I don't really care about Word documents, I only want to know about Excel documents, we give you that power to have only that data that you want get selected and to enforce that via group policy. And I'll show that in a little bit as well. And then finally, we also give you threshold ability to be able to filter out let's say that there's a document that's only being used by one person in the organization. Maybe that's not that important, and you can say, well, okay, only if a document is being used by 3 or more users, or whatever, then you can then I want to know that information. So we give you that power to filter that information out as well. And this information is, of course, available on TechNet, which is listed at the end of this deck for more information. But I wanted to give you an idea of, that we do care about privacy concerns, and so we think that these solutions are kind of a nice way of giving you options to manage it accordingly. So again, this slide is showing file obfuscation within the dashboard. So as far as planning goes, really quickly here, I want to run through to help you think about, okay, I'm excited about deploying this in my organization. I think there's a lot of rich value here. Now, what do I have to think about in order to actually get ready for this? And so, again, this slide here is just showing the dashboard and the infrastructure that I talked about earlier. And so, really quickly here, talk about how do you go about configuring and getting ready for deploying each of these. Talking about the agents first. When we think about the agents, we, of course, have it installed automatically in 2013, and that is sending up both telemetry data and inventory data about usage data. And so that combination, when the client sends up data, that's an average about 64 kilobytes, whereas as opposed to down-level versions, they're just sending usage data, not telemetry data about crashes and so forth. And so the size is a little bit smaller. It's about 50 kilobytes. As far as performance goes, the agents are not intrusive at all, and so basically it's a virtually zero impact. They're not crawling your machine and scanning for files. It's a very lightweight impact, and we're pretty confident about that. As far as how to go about configuring the agent on the machines, this can be done in a couple different ways. One of them is via, of course, the group policy template, which is available on the download center, and you can. I think that's linked to from TechNet as well. But also, if you just want to kind of get started piloting and just kind of figuring out how to use this, you can also just set the registry settings and this is kind of a little snippet of how you might do that, and setting, where you want to share the, as the agents upload the data to the common, the file share, you want to set that information. You can set tag information for filtering. If you recall, in the telemetry dashboard, we had different filters set up there. You also can configure other, options here about how often the agent will wait to upload and, delay time. And I don't want to go into a lot of data here, but, one thing I do want to say is that this is where you would set the file obfuscation, whether you set that to 0 or 1. If you set it to 1, it will obfuscate the data on the client side. And so that's a way of controlling that. And so, and so this is basically how you would go about configuring the agent to upload data. So again, this is just showing the group policy settings, and within the group policy manager, how you would go about, enabling or disabling certain things. And so in this case, it's setting the UNC path to store the data. In this case here, it's setting tags, as well as being able to filter what kinds of solutions you want to filter or prevent being displayed in the dashboard, or filtering by file types, and so forth. So again, this information is available online for you to browse through. Now, that talked about configuring the agents. Talking a little bit about configuring the telemetry processor itself and the database. We're supporting the telemetry processor running on Windows Server 2008 or higher, and as well as Windows 7 or higher. And the database is SQL Server. Minimum requirements are SQL Server 2005 plus. Express Edition will work fine. And something to keep in mind, though, is thinking about requirements is we anticipate that on average, if you got about 10,000 users that are sending data for a year, you should think about having at least enough storage for 12 gigabytes in your database. And this is just based on average numbers, based on what we talked about before, which is the average number of data that clients are sending up, whether it's down level or on Office 2013. And finally, just a little bit more data. Let's say that the telemetry processor was down for a day or for 8 hours, and then you got 25,000 users that are all sending up data at once. This is kind of a stress test. You'd want to make sure that you got enough, at least 11 gigabytes on the machine that's hosting the telemetry processor to kind of store that data, so that when it does come back online, it can upload that to the database. And so these are just some kind of constraints. And again, this is all available online for you to think about. So again, you've had the agents here, thinking about how to configure the agents. the telemetry processor, which the agents are uploading data to, which gets sent to the repository, and then of course that lights up the dashboard, which I've demoed. Talking a little bit about topology here and what we recommend. We recommend starting simple, and basically the way it works is in terms of supported configuration, you've got one database, that can support up to 100,000 users, and as far as the telemetry processor and the shared folder where the metadata gets sent up to, these work in pairs, and so there's one TP, one telemetry processor per shared folder, and each one can comfortably manage up to 50,000 users. And so, if your organization is well below that, then you should be fine with just having one database, one telemetry processor, and one shared folder. But of course, as you get more complicated, we recommend you think about bandwidth constraints and 1.5 megabits T1 or greater. If you have remote sites, you want to keep components as close together as possible in the same computer, ideally, or close proximity. Let's say I've got one site in America, one in Asia, one in Europe, or whatever, thinking about just latency issues. And of course, if you've got more than 10,000 users, think about hosting a dedicated server. And this topology recommendations are also available on TechNet as well. But just to kind of give you an idea. Now, if you are approaching over 50,000 users or so forth, then you want to maybe start thinking about splitting this out and having multiple shared folder or telemetry processor pairs to kind of spread out the load on that. One thing I do want to just quickly mention is that we are going to be releasing a new administrative tool to manage the database, which will be able to allow you to, for example, obfuscate settings or file metadata on the database side, as well as managing, archiving data and deleting data and so forth on the database. And this should be coming out pretty soon. I can't give an exact date, but it should be coming out pretty soon, so you can stay tuned for that and just look on TechNet or whatnot. Now, one thing, we've gotten some feedback from customers that, wow, this is great, but it just takes a little bit while to get deployed and get this all set up. And I want to kind of alleviate those concerns and say, no, you can do this and get up and running quickly. And this, we've already published a script, which is available, I think, on the blog post, TechNet blog post, which basically you run the script and it automatically installs pretty much everything you need, whether you're running on a work group or the main joint computer. There's a little bit of a difference in terms of for permissions. We're restoring an empty clean database for work group computers, and if it's the main joint, we're creating a new database. But the bottom line is that running the script allows you to automatically get up and running. It configures the agent automatically to start and hooks that up to the telemetry processor and configures the database so that basically it sets that whole pipeline up. And so you're ready to go, and then it automatically launches TD, the telemetry dashboard, once data reception is confirmed. And so we really think that this is, a lightweight way to kind of say, hey, this is just kind of proof of concept that this actually works, and then you can start thinking about how I would deploy it using group policy and so forth. So I want to just very quickly, to conclude, come back to the modern compatibility process that we've talked about, where we're helping you think about what's important, or giving you the data that you need about what's being used, what files, what solutions, discover what's being used, and then to prioritize that. And in this case, you can easily prioritize based on what's most frequently used. We give you that data right away in Excel, and then to proactively monitor this. As people use their data and it gets uploaded regularly to the database and gets, however often you're using the dashboard, you can see what are the top issues that are being encountered on the overview page, and then drill down for files and solutions to see, maybe what's causing a slow load experiences. What are the top add-ins that are causing slow load experiences, like I demoed earlier, and then just continue monitoring this throughout the life cycle. Just again to say, instead of make you index millions of documents and then cross off the vast majority of them because you can't obviously test them, we're helping you discover what do you really need to test against, and what are those critical applications. Now, this is not getting you 100% of the way there. We still, of course, recommend that you partner with business areas and track and ask, hey, we see that this is the behavior that of your users that are experiencing. What is important to you, and have that conversation. But at least it gives you the data to have that conversation and discover what's being used. Okay. And then finally, I want to come back to the C2R experience and think about, now we've got C2R click to run, which gives you that side-by-side install. You can basically get running right away, and because you can install side-by-side, and if something fails, you can go back to the safety of a down-level version that's running properly. But, in the meantime, you have that no-fear testing. In fact, in this case, testing becomes piloting here. And in a production environment, and it unlocks new testing scenarios by your customers because it's driven by discovery. Your customers are basically, as they use it, they're discovering issues, which gets automatically displayed in the dashboard. And so you see here that you've got all the benefits of testing in production with the dashboard giving you that rich data so that you can go ahead and proactively manage issues and then roll this out to a broad scale throughout your organization. So the key takeaways: partner with your business areas. Think about discovery, not inventory. This is a conversation starter with your organization or whoever you might be working with to think about what's important. These are providing tools. The tools are providing data, but we don't give you the answer. We're not saying you need to test these files. You still need to have this conversation with the organization about this is the data. Now help us think about what's important, what are issues that we should be testing against, and so forth. But we're giving you that data and shortening that process now. And then, of course, to be bold and give you that safe production testing environment. And then to manage the future or the past. Basically, in this case here, one thing I think is really cool about this is that, really, you can even use telemetry. Let's say that you've got 2003 installed and you want to upgrade to 2010, for example. In theory, you could just buy a copy of 2013, and then that the agents that we give you and with the dashboard, it actually still can give you rich usage information, not telemetry information on down level, but usage information about what's being used even on down level installations, and really help you even within that to figure out, how would I even upgrade to 2010? But of course, we think that there's a lot of great features in 2013 that you should be moving to. So again, managing the future or the past. We think that this is really exciting, and we hope that you think so too. So if you want to get on board, please go ahead and read more about telemetry on TechNet library and blog articles, and you can also download the deployment script that I talked about to get up and running very quickly. And again, here are some links, and I think Josh is going to be publishing this deck a little bit later on. So you should have this information available. And I think that's it. So Josh, are you still there?
Yeah, great presentation. Thanks, David.
Sure, thank you.
So we have a few minutes here for any last questions. And like David mentioned, I will be hosting the deck that he presented and the video recording on the original blog post where you found out about this meeting.